Good evening, folks. I'm Robert Clarkson. I'm the chairman and executive director of the Patriot Network in Anderson, South Carolina. And I'll be teaching a class to you now on how to buy silver and gold at dealer prices. I'll be teaching a class on what money is and what money is not. And I'm going to explain to you what silver and gold is, and I'm going to show you how to save money and profit from what we call a general economic collapse, often called survival times. When I start my programs off, I like to start out with a newspaper article, and we sometimes call these our horror tales. But I've got a newspaper article here about President Bush subsidizing grain sales. Now, what kind of grain sales don't make the newspaper? Because they do this all the time. This is our government paying for the wheat and other grains to be given to the Soviet Union. According to this article here, our president every 2 months sends the Russians 1.5 million tons of wheat, of which the taxpayers pay for half. Our government gives the Russians free 750 million tons of wheat every other month. That's where your tax dollars are being used. Your tax dollars are going to pay for the guns and the missiles aimed at us. That's what your government's doing with your tax dollars. A ton of wheat would fill up this room here, up to right here, as a ton of wheat. That's how much it is. A ton of wheat is about what you'd eat in your whole lifetime in wheat. And our government is giving them 750 million tons of wheat every other month. So if you're paying for taxes, if you pay income tax, you're financing destruction of your own country and financing socialism in Russia and in this country also. I also have an article here, which is in my newsletter, which a lot of people like. This is a newspaper article and a check here. Notice here, this is a check made out to me for $4,500. Now, if you tell people you've met Robert Clarkson, most people said, oh yeah, they've heard of Clarkson. He was arrested for taxes. Well, let me tell you what happened. I was picketing the Internal Revenue Service building, and the IRS phoned up the local cops and had them come out and arrest me. That was my arrest for taxes, because I was picketing their building. But anyway, I persisted, and I sued them for violating my rights and false arrest. And they settled out of court for $4,500, which constituted $1,000 an hour. They had me locked up. If you persist, you can beat big government. You've just got to stand on it and work hard and don't give up. But our class tonight is we're going to be talking about what money is and what money isn't. First of all, let's look at the future a little bit, and let's see what's going to happen in our country and, of course, what's going to happen to our paper money. The congressman from Charleston, South Carolina, a couple of months ago predicted a general economic collapse in our country, where we'll have something worse than the Depression, a general financial collapse where everybody's money is going to be worth nothing. Now, why do you make such a prediction like this? Somebody take out pencil and paper. Several people can take out pencil and paper. Let's go over this prediction and see where it came from. Okay, what is the financial health and security of our country? How financially sound is the United States of America? Is it solvent? Is it bankrupt? Does it have any money? Well, let me tell you a true story. A couple of months ago, I was walking downtown in the hometown where I grew up, and I bumped into a buddy of mine that I hadn't seen since high school. And we're talking a little bit about stuff, and of course the question immediately arose was, what do you do? So I asked him what he was doing. He said he just retired from the military. I think he said it was the Navy or the Air Force. He had just retired from the military. And I stopped to think, this guy is 38 years old. When he joined the the Navy, when he was age 18, we finished high school together, he joined the service at age 18. At age 38, this guy is eligible for a pension of half pay for life. This guy is entitled by law to half his military pay as long as he lives. I don't want to begrudge anybody that served in the military. I don't want to say anything bad about them getting their pension, because they certainly deserve it. Anybody put up with all that bureaucracy, all that paperwork, all that nonsense for 20 years deserves everything they can get. I did 2 years in the military, and that was plenty for me. And some poor sufferer that does 20 years, been shoved all around the world in long hours and never knowing where you are and not knowing what's going to happen next, they very much deserve the pay that they have coming to them. But our class tonight is not about whether they deserve their pay or what it's going to cost you and I, the taxpayer, and the financial stability of our country. But my buddy retired at age 38. Now that means he's entitled to a pension for the rest of his life. The life expectancy of a white male in our country is around 78 years old. I mean, of course, some people kick the bucket at age 50, but others will live to 90. But statistically speaking, the white male in our country today will reach the age of 78 on an average before they go. Some will go earlier than some later, but it averages out to age 78. That means this guy that I was just talking to is going to draw a government pension from age 38 to age 78. That's 40 years. He works 20 years, then he draws his pension for 40. Now let's look and see how much money we're talking about here. If he retires in only 20 years, he'd be getting something like $2,000 a month for the rest of his life, on an average. Some get more, some get less. Also, people that do 25 years and 27 years in the military get close to 100% what they earn as pay. But average, we're speaking about the average, we're going to look at around $2,000 a month. My buddy is also entitled by law to free medical attention to himself and his family as long as he lives. So let's tack on $1,000 for that. The taxpayers will be paying this guy $3,000 a month for life. $3,000 a month times 12 months in the year comes to, what's the figure here? $36,000. He has a life expectancy of 40 years, so 40 years times $36,000 comes to what? It comes to $1,400,000. That's $1,444,000 is what this guy is eligible for in benefits and pay. Not counting inflation, because the government indexes the military retirement to go to inflation. In our country now, there are about 1 million people drawing military retirement, including several in this room. So if you multiply 1 million people drawing military retirement on an average person collecting $1.4 million, what's the figure that you come to? You come to a figure of $1.44 trillion. That's how much our government has promised out to people who retired from the military. It's a lot of money. The next thing is you have now in active duty in the military around 2 million people, of whom about 1 million will eventually reach this retirement. And they also enter it at various stages. So if you add the 2 million people that have some type of retirement benefits due them, plus the 1 million now, you find that this figure doubles. It's not $1.4 trillion, it's $2.8 trillion. I've seen some figures for military retirement as being vested or being owed in the neighborhood of $4 trillion. A lot of people calling this the pension bomb. All right? Now let's look at also this federal civil service. That's post office employees, IRS employees, civilian employees of the military, and also Social Security employees. You know, most Social Security people are not covered by Social Security, and most Social Security employees don't pay into Social Security. They must know something we don't know. But you add up all these people, you find out there's about 1 million people drawing federal civil service retirement, and 100,000 entering those rolls every year. These people have been promised a lot of money. The average person is going to be drawing a federal civil service retirement for 20 years, and they're going to draw about $2,000 a month. And the number of people who will draw federal civil service retirement, who already have some vested rights in it, is about 4 million people. So 4 million people times $2,000 a month times 20 years also comes out to a figure a little bit more than $2 trillion, and some people saying up to $4 trillion. And then you look at the Social Security. What's the average Social Security payment now? It's about $1,000 a month. Medicaid is now approaching $1,000 a month. So the Social Security is promised $2,000 a month, 12 months of the year, for an average of 20 years, to 100 million people. So we're looking at Social Security unfunded pensions in the amount of $4 trillion to $10 trillion. Our government has promised out more money than there is. In New York City now, the city taxpayers are now paying more for the pensions on retired police officers than they're paying on police officers on active duty. And we're going to be seeing this with the military soon. Our government's promised out large amounts of money. This money cannot be paid. It's not there. In order to have Social Security paying what they promised in 10 years, the statisticians and the economists and the actuaries are saying that Social Security tax will be 50% what everybody makes. When you go to work, you pay 50% of what you make just in the Social Security to pay out what's been promised. And they're saying that's going to be in 10 years. Well, other people saying in 20 years that everybody in this country will be paying 100% of what they make into Social Security just to pay the Social Security retirement. Obviously, it can't be done. Our government is hopelessly bankrupt. And the question is what's going to happen? I'll tell you what, those Federal Reserve notes you have in your pocket are going to be worth zero someday. A number of countries have had paper currencies over the centuries. In every case, at all times, the paper money inflates into zero. It always happens. In this country, it can be brought about by the pensions, or it could be brought about by a number of other things. Our federal government is right now running a budget deficit of $200 billion a year. $200 billion of which the Japanese are buying half. At any day, the Japanese can decide they're going to quit buying our government bonds. Then what's going to happen? It's just going to be chaos on the money markets. We've got another country under right now government's fiscal irresponsibility. And we're playing with fire here, and something may happen. The next thing is the tax burden on the American people is outrageous. It's just simply too much. And the tax burden is so high it's beginning to break the economy. And you're beginning to see this mentioned in national news media a little bit. Back when I was in school in college 25 years ago, we studied in one of our economics classes about what's called a tipping point. That's when the taxation on the economy goes over 40%. The government takes too much out, people will quit working. There won't be enough jobs to go around, and the economy winds down. I take my money and I spend it, therefore somebody else has business and job, therefore they spend it. But if the government comes, grabs it out, takes it out of the economy, people start losing their jobs. And this figure comes at around 40%, and we passed that a number of years ago. President Reagan was running for office, and he campaigned for presidency, talking about supply-side economics. Another word for supply-side economics is the Lafleur curve. Dr. Lafleur pointed out that if the government takes too much money from the people won't work and won't pay. As a matter of fact, a lot of people joined the tax revolt. Isn't that something? That at a certain time in a certain place, people would rather fight than pay. And a lot of people say that this is around 40% of the economy. But as our government taxes more and more from the working people, you'll find working people working less. Let's say our government has to come up with another $20 billion due to the increased inflation and the interest in the national debt. Our government spends something like $200 billion a year interest on the national debt. Right now, Treasury bills are paying interest at around 7%. If inflation goes up 2%, then the government bonds won't be paying 7% interest, they'll be paying 9% interest.